as the bus behind me says, discover another side of Scotland. Let's talk about a girl called Holly Gregg. Holly Gregg has Down syndrome. Holly Gregg was the victim of institutional paedophile abuse.
I fled my home after my husband beat me up, and I went into a hostel in Aberdeen. We were in the hostel 2 weeks when Holly told me about her dad. She says, because he touches me. And I says, he what? And she says, he touches me. And I says, what do you mean? He touches you, you know? And she pointed to certain, you know, areas in her body. The police officer said to her at the time, and when did this, where did this take place? And Holly went, Brazil. Now, up until that point, I didn't even know that, you know? And I went, Brazil. And she went, yes, Brazil. I says, Holly. I said, are you sure? And she went, yes, Brazil. And at that point, you know, Holly was 6 years old when we were in Brazil.
She's been described as a competent witness, not only by the police themselves, but also by medical experts who've examined her at the time to make sure that whatever she said could be taken seriously. In fact, one of the experts actually said that Holly does not know how to lie.
It's very hard for them, you know, to tell lies because they haven't got the skills.
I think it'd be very difficult to find a more reliable witness than Holly Gregg.
Holly Gregg's father ran a paedophile ring, which included many top government officials in Aberdeen.
And she named another 14 abusers, men and women, and amongst those abusers were a sheriff, Sheriff Graham Buchanan, a police officer, Terry Major, 2 nurses, 2 social workers, including the social worker whose responsibility was to care for Holly, and a number of other policemen as well, including an accountant and another lawyer. 11 days after Anne had been to the police station in Aberdeen to give out all the names of these well-known and eminent people, there was a knock on her door. 10 people from the local psychiatric institution grabbed Anne, pulled her trousers down, injected her and threw her into a van, leaving Holly screaming in the flat that they had.
What happens next?
I start fighting to get justice for myself, you know, and my daughter.
And how soon before Robert became involved?
8 years.
8 years. So for 8 years, you were battling with the authorities?
Yes.
Constantly?
Yes, yes.
To get justice?
Writing letters, hitting walls, writing letters, hitting walls, you know, just everything.
The Procurator Fiscal, the person that decides if a prosecution is going ahead, a lady called Eilish Angelini, refused to take it forward. She's now since become the Lord Advocate of Scotland, the top legal person in Scotland. She has refused at that level to let the case go forward to court and be investigated.
And I know at one time the BBC was going to make a programme about you.
They came down to Shropshire, interviewed Holly, interviewed myself, saw all the documentation that we had, and the next thing was I got a phone call from the guy who was making the programme, and he says, I'm very sorry that we can't go ahead with the programme. He says, because if we go ahead, we're going to lose our job.
So there is a massive cover-up.
It shows how long the tentacles of these people are.
And why did you want to stay on the show?
I want to fight.
She wants to fight.
So we are here just to ask you to please Google Holly Gregg. Find out the true interests of the people who claim to be your leaders.
We saw this with the Franklin cover-up in America. It's a famous example of this. John DeCamp uncovered a banking fraud involving a guy called Lawrence King, who was a major Republican. It turns out, as DeCamp got deeper and went beyond the financial fraud, for which King was jailed, and found that King was running a pedophile ring in Nebraska and wider across America that was supplying children for sex to the major politicians in America.
Every victim witness who stepped forward in any way, or even was a potential witness that somebody heard about, has either been killed, put in jail under some theory or other, terrified or run out of the state, discredited, every perpetrator, even the convicted ones, have been treated as conquering heroes. Obviously, the FBI was protecting something a lot more significant than a bunch of old pedophiles having improper relations with little boys.
A Yorkshire television documentary, which was supposed to go out on the Discovery Channel, was pulled at the very last minute, and all copies were told to be destroyed. Well, at least one wasn't, and you can see it on the internet.
Now, this is Benassi, a kid named Paul Benassi writing this, and this is directly word for word from his diary. Me and Nicholas, a boy who was about 12 or 13, were driven to an area that had big trees. There was a cage with a boy in it who was not wearing anything. Nicholas and I were given these Tarzan things to put around us, and they told me to the boy and stuff.
You can do it to the cage too. Do what, Paul? Do what? Screw the kid. Okay, so you screwed the kid down. Is that possible to the kid too? Yeah.
We did this stuff to the boy for about 30 minutes or an hour when a man came in and grabbed the boy and started f***ing him. The boy screamed and stuff, and the man was forcing his into the boy all the way. The boy was bleeding from his rectum.
Shot him. For what? Shot him. Shot him in the head.
They then forced me to the dead boy.
What the matter with you? Watching. Smiling.
One said the men with the hoods would take care of the body for them. Now understand that I didn't know that the thing was Bohemian Grove back then, nor did the kid when he was writing it. All he knew was he was taken to this place.
One example of this stuff is a place called Bohemian Grove in America. It's about 75 miles north of San Francisco. This is where the so-called elite go every year. Usually it's in like July time. One of the things that they worship at Bohemian Grove is a 40-foot stone owl. These are the people who are running our world currently. And they're over there and they're doing this Babylonian-type ritual. They float in what they call a effigy of a man, and as they set fire to him, there's this enormous blood-curdling scream. Now, one of two things have happened here. Either that ain't an effigy, or they've actually gone to the point of recording a blood-curdling scream of agony and terror to play as part of their ritual. These are the people who are deciding what happens in our world. It's not that pedophilia and Satanism is happening, but the scale of it and how fundamental it is to those who are running the world is absolutely staggering.
The centerpiece of the entire web is the use of children for sex, the compromising of politicians.
A new world order can emerge, a new era.
And I'm sure Father George Bush will confirm that.
George Bush sexually abused my daughter. My daughter Kelly was used as a presidential model sex slave for George Bush, and she was only like 2.5, 3 years old when that started with Bush.
It is so rampant, it's unbelievable. Henry Kissinger is a famous pedophile, as is Gordon Brown and the Bushes, and I could go on and on. There's millions of them.
I'm not kidding you. People think this is extreme. The British government is run by people who are in fear of exposure from some of this stuff.
There's obviously a massive kind of library somewhere filled of videos of old politicians and people in power, you know, using some of these slaves. These people are needed to control the whole system.
The cement that holds the establishment together is paedophilia and Satanism.
Some of these politicians, they come into it, they probably think that they really want to change things for the better, but then they just find out that it's filled with all this blackmail.
This is going on all over the world every day.
It's even in sports and entertainment.
I don't care where you are listening to this, it's going on in your community.
I'm not joking. Pedophiles are running most of your major governments, okay?
Now, this starts to explain other things, you know, from a wider point of view. This is how it's possible for these people to use depleted uranium in the weapons that create horrific birth defects that take the breath away when you see them in Iraq now. These are the people that are pepper bombing the Gaza Strip using phosphorus weapons that burn people alive. These are the people orchestrating 9/11 so that 3,000 people die to justify killing even more in Iraq and Afghanistan. This is the mentality. And, you know, I've been saying for years, do not judge what these people would do by what you would do, because they're not like you. You say, they'd never do that. No, you would never do that. They do, and they do it all the time.